Hi everyone. That's weird. Where's Michael? Hopefully he'll come sooner or later. There he is. Oh, right. We're on. Thanks for coming and thanks for joining this new meeting. That's much better. We've got 16 people on this one so far. Keeps going up. So hopefully we've all made it to the right place in virtual Zoom land. I'm just going to delete the calendar invites from the previous one because that is confusing.
I'm amazed. I'm really pleased we managed to do the transfer over so smoothly.
Yeah.
Hi Azim, hi Louise.
I'm sure there'll be some people that try to go to that and then.
Hello 00750046. How many people were on the old link?
About 7. So.
Oh, okay. So.
And I think I've seen a few names I've recognised from there. So hopefully we'll be all right. Great. Well, it's 10.
Oh, hi Joe.
Make a start. We've got 21 people.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone
Cool.
for coming. Hopefully it was useful.
Good morning everyone. Hope everyone's well. Thanks for joining us for the latest in our series of social media training webinars. This webinar this morning constitutes the first of the next phase of the learning, which is intermediate. And so it's designed to provide you, or well, to provide all schemes with an understanding of and the ability to deploy some of the more applied features of the social media platforms we've been looking at, so Facebook and Twitter. Obviously, all with the same aims of trying to grow your following, engage your networks, especially your carers, and to boost your digital profile. So in the intermediate phase, generally, we'd like to cover quite a few topics, and we're going to just focus on one today. But over the course of the next sessions, we want to cover things like, so the timing of posts and how to schedule posts on Facebook and Twitter so that they appear in the future. Hashtags and mentions and using them as part of tactics to kind of get people's attention. Following people and inviting people. Tactics to grow your online audience and following. How to use these platforms' inbuilt analytics and insights capacities to basically analyze and understand your social media performance and to tailor your future activity. We'd also want to cover Facebook events and groups and Twitter lists. And we're also always all ears for any suggestions or requests for help on specific topics or specific points around the use of social media that you would really like addressed. So we really want to encourage you to use the chat to ask questions. At the end of this session, we're going to we'll have a hopefully plentiful time for Q&A. And then in between sessions, if you think of something that you want to know, please email it to us and at press@sharedlifeplus.org.uk, and we can add that to the agenda for the next training. So today we're going to focus on timing of posts and then a practical guide to how to schedule posts on Facebook and Twitter. So I think it's good to explore the relevance and the importance of timing when posting on social media. When we post on social media, obviously we want what we've written to be seen by the people who we want to see it. And the extent to which a post is likely to be seen is called its visibility. And there are a load of different factors which influence this, and some of which differ further when you take into account the specifics of the different platforms. But as a general rule, your post's main audience is always going to be those people who are already following you on your page and profile. But you can increase the likelihood of those people seeing it, and as we'll see, the likelihood of people beyond your kind of follower list seeing it. If the quality of what you post is good, if what you say is interesting and prompts engagement. Facebook and Twitter's algorithms mean that if a post has a large number of likes or shares or retweets, it's more likely to appear in people's feeds and be more prominent at that. And it will also boost its chances of being seen by people beyond your existing followers, because people will share posts to their followers, which will multiply your reach. But we've discussed the posting good quality stuff before, and apart from the inherent kind of quality of your posts, there are other factors which we can control, which will increase a post's reach. And the foremost among them is definitely timing. So one of the greatest strengths of social media is its ability to kind of conduct discussions of events almost in real time. And you'll see this is why one of the reasons why journalists are increasingly looking to social media, both as a source for events as they happen on the ground. So I remember during the riots in 2011, when I was trying to find out what was happening locally and what was kind of happening in the area around me, I couldn't get any information from BBC News or BBC Northwest or any of the Merseyside local news stations. But I was able to go on Twitter and just type in, relevant hashtags and type in, the right kind of search terms plus my area, and I was able to kind of see images and videos of things as they were happening. So I felt more clued in than the journalists that I was seeing on the news later that night. You'll see also journalists now are increasingly using social media to live blog events, because they're the only platforms that can really allow you to add commentary and report on things in real time. And so the ways in which this is relevant for us is, I'm trying to think. So if you take to Twitter, for example, to post commentary on a television documentary or on a news item as it's playing live on TV, it can really increase the likelihood of it being seen, especially if it's in conjunction with the relevant hashtags, which we've talked about before and we can talk about again. As we talked about in the content curation section of this guidance, we talked about how sharing relevant stuff can really enhance your reputation as a source of kind of expertise and of interest on a particular topic, and that adds value for your followers. And it's just the same with kind of tweeting or talking about stuff as it happens in real time, because it will help your followers to sort of see that you're in tune to current events and you're ready to talk about them as they happen. So it makes you look on the ball. And so that's kind of one aspect of it, but there are other practical things that might influence how we time posts. And it may well be, and it probably will happen, that you will want to schedule posts and be able to post something that will appear in the future, that you can schedule in advance. And both Facebook and Twitter both allow you to do this. So, for example, you might want a post to go out on a weekend, or on a weekday evening, or at any time when staff aren't going to be working and you don't have the capacity to actually write your message in that time. And also, of course, as we said, for the reasons we mentioned above, you may well want to time posts to coincide with the specific event. So, if you know that there's a documentary on coming up this weekend about learning disability, it might be, a good idea to kind of have some posts lined up so that they're scheduled to go live at the time the program is playing, or just before it, or just after it, because that's when people will be taken to the internet to kind of you know, if they're interested to kind of start a discussion about things, about what they've seen, and to learn more. So I think I can think of a good example of when we used this was when we had probably our biggest national media coup of last year, and we got coverage in all of the, or nearly all of ITV's regional news teams. And we knew in advance what time those segments would be playing. And we also luckily had content that we prepared, because we'd obviously liaised with the Shared Lives matches and with the journalists who were taking part in the stories. And so we could post stuff about those families, further information, at the time that they were appearing on the TV, which was a really nice kind of coordinated campaign. So,
cool. Could you put your screen down a bit so we can see your face?
oh, sorry, I've not actually been looking at myself.
And it helps.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phoebe. Yeah, I was just trying to like trying to detract attention from my bad hair day. So now want to move on to the kind of practical steps here and show you how to share and post, how to schedule posts online ahead of time. So I'm just about to share my screen. Right. So can everybody see my screen now? Yeah. Brilliant. So to schedule a post on Facebook, you initially need to go onto your home feed, just open up Facebook like so. And then we want to click on, in the top right, as we always do pretty much, with a couple of exceptions, which we will cover at a later date. But we always, remember, want to be posting as our page rather than as our personal profile. So in the top right, we click on your page, and then you'll see your profile, and then you've got a host of options, and you've got on the left-hand column and on the top bar on the ribbon, and it's there we want to concentrate on. So click the drop-down arrow next to more, and you'll see there the option to select publishing tool. So click on that. So let's have a load. Right now, what's great about this is it shows you, this is kind of integrated into Facebook's analytics and insights platform, which we'll discuss in another session, which is where you kind of see all of your posts and see how they're performing. But it will also house any posts that you create that are scheduled in the future. So this is a good place where you can always see kind of what you've got lined up to come out. So once you're in published posts, click create post. And then you get this little dialog box opened up, and it's very much the same as what you'd see when you're just trying to post normally and in real time, but with a crucial little option at the bottom. So you enter your text and add your photo here as you would ordinarily, and any kind of emojis or anything else that you want to do. So I'm just going to create an example now with one I prepared earlier. Right. So I'm just grabbing this text here, which I've had to email to my personal computer for technical reasons. Now back into the dialog box, paste my text. I'm going to add a photo. It's been very slow this morning. Sorry about this, everybody. While that loads, I'll just take a quick look at the chat.
Dawn made a good point about the fact that timings for social media usage will likely have changed due to lockdown and things. We are going to cover off timings and things, I think, a bit later on. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, we basically there's a lot of this really does not seem to want to select my photos, and I don't really know why.
There are loads of sort of general sites out there that you can find on Google that talk about stats generally and as to when people use social media, Facebook and Twitter and things. Try and find some before the end of the session, but it's worth checking that if you do look at any of them, that, you know, are they sort of referring to the current state of play in terms of people's more recent habits due to lockdown? Because yeah, Dawn's right. You know, these habits are changing because people are at home more often. Oh, there you go. You've got it.
Yeah. So there we go. So we've got the post here, and this is something that one of kind of some of our kind of flagship messaging in Shared Lives Week, because we've created a post about all the latest statistics from the state of sector and the kind of lessons that we've drawn from it. So, and we're using that information. So there's the link to it there, and we're using that information to call to kind of to talk about that how resilient Shared Lives is. It's stayed robust and it's kept growing at a smallish rate this last year, despite all the difficulties that social care as a whole is facing. And we think that that's especially pertinent now that we're in a crisis, and Shared Lives has proven itself that it's resilient and that it can kind of adapt and cope with difficult circumstances. So right, there's our post. I'm happy with that. I've added my photo, and now this is where the dialog box is different to how it appears in real time. Here on the far left of the three options, you've got the opportunity to share now, which would just be posting it and it would just appear immediately. But if you click that little drop down arrow next to it, and then click schedule or schedule, use this little box here to select the date that you want the post to appear. So we're going to go for right at the start of Shared Lives Week, and then we're going to choose a time. Now, this is as good a time as any to kind of talk about the issues around what you raised, Dawn, about timing. There, as Nick says, there are a lot of different schools of thought about this, and a lot of research is done on optimum kind of timings, and it's stuff that kind of began a few years ago when email marketing became a thing, and people started to try and think about, you know, what was the best time of day to send out an email so that it had the highest likelihood of being opened and seen by as many people as possible. And obviously, since social media has really taken off, tons of research has been done to see which hours people are most active in. And when it was in its infancy, I think, you know, people were probably working from the same set of information across the board. But it's very much worth thinking about how, well, now with the vast numbers of people that use social media, you know, different people are going to have different habits. And I think when a lot of the time when we're posting on Twitter, for example, as Shared Lives Plus, we are aiming for a particular type of audience. And really, I'd say that's the key when you're researching when is the best time to post. You need to think about who it is you're trying to reach, and structure your kind of inquiries about when they will be most likely to be active on social media. So when we're posting stuff on Twitter that's kind of designed to be seen by other organizations or by people in a professional capacity, I quite like to post stuff kind of in the first half hour or hour of the day after 9, when people are kind of just getting it, maybe just getting into work, and before they kind of start working properly, you know, they might be flitting across social media. Lunchtime is another very good example of that, because so between kind of 12 and 2, people might be having their lunch at their desks and just kind of browsing. And then similarly, at the end of the day, the kind of close of play, sort of 5 o'clock, 4:30 to 5:30, you might see people kind of getting ready to go. And again, they're kind of taking the foot off the pedal a little bit, and they're looking at their social media feeds. But of course, Dawn, as you pointed out, it's all changed now. I'd imagine that people are probably online even more than they usually are. And, you know, it's been the case for a while now that people are probably increasingly looking at their feeds first thing they do when they wake up in the morning, and in some cases the last thing at night as well. So sometimes an early morning post could work well too. So for this example, I'm going to go with my kind of like initial with the kind of initial time slot that we mentioned. So I'm going for 9:15, when hopefully people will be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and searching the net for news and interesting things. So I've got my posts sorted, I've got my date sorted, and I've got my time sorted. So now I'm just going to click schedule. And then to complete the action, you just click schedule post here. And there it's published. Now, when this loads,
Scheduled posts.
Yeah, so here we've got on this page, we can see posts that we've already published. But if you go over to your side column here with different options, underneath published posts, there's the option to click scheduled posts. So if you do that, you'll be able to see that here, that's in the bank, as it were, and it's ready to go. And you can see the time that it's ready to go there. Always worth double checking this, because it's easy to make a mistake on the 24-hour clock format. And if you're not happy with it, I think you can then click, if you tick the box next to it, you can then take actions, reschedule it, delete it entirely. And then if you click on the settings button here, you can edit the post. So if I noticed I've made a typo in it and I'm mortified, but I've got time to save it before it goes out, I can edit the post here, and then you can just you enter into the dialog box again and just edit the text as you would ordinarily. So I'm happy with that, though. I don't think there are any typos. So that's saved and it's ready to go. And if you all tune into Facebook at 9:15 or next week on Monday, you'll be able to see that. So give it a like and a share. So that was Facebook, and unfortunately, that's the easy one. So Facebook's improved its publishing tools platform a great deal, and it's actually quite easy to use now. This used to be even easier to do, because the scheduling option used to exist just on normal posts. So you could write a normal post and then think, maybe I want to actually send this in the future. And that little drop down, which had the option to either publish now or schedule in the future, used to exist there. So it was a lot easier then. It went through like a transition phase where this option was only available when you went into Facebook ads. And I think Nick touched on this a couple of weeks ago or last week, that both Facebook and Twitter are trying to change their business model at the moment and really gear a lot of their support and a lot of the functionality of the platforms towards the advertising aspect. And they really kind of encourage you to sign up to the business side of things and basically pay. And that's kind of the side of things, the advertising side of things and paid posts, which will be part of a more advanced service that we provide for schemes for targeted Facebook advertising and Twitter advertising, if you're interested. But
Michael, a couple of people have just mentioned on the chat about stuff that they've downloaded to schedule tweets, like and content, TweetDeck. So they are separate tools that you would download, and you can add more than one social media channel on TweetDeck. It's multiple Twitter accounts if you have more than one. Hootsuite, I think, allows up to 3 social media accounts for free, and you can schedule tweets and posts on those channels as well. Obviously, today we're just covering off how to do it directly on the page, but they are handy tools and worth looking at. I think the other reason that they're handy, I've found, is that you can use them to look at sort of aggregated content on particular keywords. So even if it's not like a direct mention of your account or a hashtag, you can just literally create a list around social care or something like that.
Yeah.
And any tweet or post that mentions social care will pop up in your feed, and then you could potentially intervene and post something.
Yeah. It's like an alert, isn't it? It's like setting up an alert so that when you get a notification, rather than having to search for a particular keyword, you'd get an alert, and you know, if someone's mentioning social care, that information will come to you, and then you can go and check it out. The reason I've not mentioned TweetDeck or Hootsuite in this training, and I don't know whether actually maybe it was the wrong decision now, because I think, generally speaking, I prefer to keep things simple and just use the main platform. I've used Hootsuite and TweetDeck in the past, and it can be a little bit. It's not as streamlined, I think, having like third party providers, especially when most of the functionality on them is available through the original platforms. For example, for the search for the keywords and search terms, Twitter, I don't know whether it's the second to last iteration. I don't know whether they still do this, but you can actually you can set up an alert for a keyword on Twitter itself now. But I don't know whether they've deleted that function. I know you could do it about 6 months ago, so I'll have to check that out. And it may well be actually that you know, it's worth using Hootsuite and TweetDeck, and maybe we should kind of put together some training on them, because as I said, my initial rationale was that it was just to simplify things. And while Facebook has improved its platform to do publishing tools and analytics and everything, it's improved it no end. Twitter's is not straightforward, and theirs is still really clunky, and theirs is very much in this transition stage that's trying to get you to use their ads function. So we're going to cover that off now, because it is possible to schedule tweets without using a third-party provider, or without having to pay for any extra functionality. So we're going to go to Twitter now. I'm going to share my screen again. But yeah, it might be worth, if people are interested in TweetDeck and Hootsuite, let us know, because it might be worth putting something together on that as well. So share my screen again. Can everyone see? Right, so to schedule tweets in advance, you open up Twitter like so, and you're on your home page here, and down in the left-hand column where you've got different options, you want to click on more. So here are a number of different options, and you want to click Twitter ads. So you can see the whole way it's framed from the start is to basically, you know, frame it around advertising and paid for content, but this is just the way to get in. So once you're on this Twitter for Business homepage, which is what that button takes you to, you want to create an ad. Now, you can get to it through the top ribbon here in advertising and basics. You can kind of get to it through there, but the quickest way is just to go through this create an ad button here. So there are a couple of different ways to get to this, and they've been changing. And unfortunately, there's no obvious drop-down button at the moment to be able to get you to this stage. And that's precisely because they want you to be able to, they want you to have to click through a load of boxes that encourage you to set up a paid for ad campaign. But what you're actually looking to get to is, if you can see in this background here, once you're in an area where there's this black banner at the top of the page, then you're in the right spot. You're in what used to be called the Creative Hub or something like that, but they've removed the visibility of it and removed the kind of easy links to it. But so here you've got a dialog box which is encouraging you to set up your first campaign. Cancel that, sack it off, get rid. And you'll notice that in the top right now you've got quite a familiar looking tweet button, which is what we want to click on now. So click on that, and hey presto, you've got a box that's not too dissimilar to the one that appears when you're trying to just create a post, a tweet normally on your timeline. So again, you'd fill this in with, like on Facebook, you'd fill it in with images and text or videos or emojis or whatever, just as you would when you normally post. So I'm going to go to my repository of content again here, which I emailed to myself. So this is kind of the same message as the one we scheduled for Facebook, but it's tailored because it's shorter, and because obviously there are fewer characters available on Twitter, and we've added some hashtags in and just hopefully made it a bit snappier. But it's still kind of sharing the same message, and it still links to the story on our website that we want people to see. So that's pasted in. I'm going to select an image. Oh, hang on. Let's just upload the same photo as the one that we put on Twitter. There we go. That's one of my favorite shared lives images, that, and it's not even professionally taken, just sent in as one of our photo competitions a few years ago. Okay, so relatively happy with all that. Photos uploaded, the text is as we want it to be, so the post is ready. Now, the first little thing to take notice of here that's important, oh hang on, I better just plug my laptop in so that it doesn't die at this crucial juncture. So down here, it automatically selects promoted only, and if you were to leave that ticked or selected, it would only, that means it would only share the tweet to a pre-prepared paid for audience as part of an ad campaign. Now, you want this to be just seen by your followers like any other post would. So unselect that and make sure it's unselected. And then now in the bottom right, you'd have the option to tweet it if you wanted to just post it out straight away, but obviously there'd be no point in coming into the ad manager to do all that and go through all that trouble. So we want to click the downward facing arrow here. Again, similar to Facebook, and click schedule. So again, suddenly the option to select the time and date appears here in this little box. So select the date, and we'll go with the same time, I should think, Monday. We'll go 09:15 a.m. and then we schedule it. Now, this is where, and again, I'm a bit disappointed because this is still, as this functionality is in transition, that bit is not. It's very hard to actually see your scheduled tweets, and it's frustrating because, as I say, Facebook has this has a brilliant kind of area where you can see everything in scheduled posts. I've actually missed the boat here to tweet that, to view my scheduled tweets. So I'm just going to paste it again and create a new. I'm just going to do it again so I can show you. There is a link that enables you to see where your scheduled tweets are. but I've had a nightmare with it this morning. I've not been able to get onto it, and it's always shows an error message. And I've looked it up online, and quite a few people have had the same issue, and I think it's just a bug. But what I did do a test this morning, and the scheduled tweet did still work. So I scheduled it for 5 minutes in advance, and then I saw it appear on our feed. So the function to schedule is still working, but it looks like the ability to see your repository of scheduled tweets is very buggy at the moment. So if I just do this again now, and then I'll delete, we can always delete it, and click schedule. Up here, it gives you the option to click to view your scheduled tweets. Now, again, it's come up with an error message, and I've looked it up, and basically people have found that using a different browser can work, or disabling your ad blocker, or clearing your cookies. I've tried all that, and it just doesn't seem to want to do it. So it may well be that this is just down, this function at the moment. But that is ordinarily where you go and see where all your tweets are scheduled as usual. So that is that. That was scheduling Facebook posts and tweets in advance. We've got a quarter of an hour left now, and it would be great to get some questions and cover off some of the any of the things that you've been talking about in the chat. I'd really like to also know if you have specific things that you'd like in-depth treatment of in the future. Yeah, really like to know that, so we can design the training, the future training, to kind of suit you. I suppose one of the reasons we focused on this of all the potential topics in the intermediate phase is that it's Shared Lives Week next week, and we thought this is probably the most valuable thing to learn now, while there's still time to kind of prepare stuff in advance for Shared Lives Week. So if you know you're going to be busy out and about, not much time on your hands, because all the different things that you might be doing next week, it might be a really good idea to start scheduling some posts now. And if you if you think back to the previous webinars and if you look at the resources on the digital toolkit, you'll see that in the initial guide, there are template tweets and Facebook posts that we've created, which you can use as the basis for your own to kind of get you started. Although, as we mentioned then, and as the resource about storytelling dictates in that toolkit as well, we think story-based posts about matches in your scheme are definitely the way to go. And we know that a lot of schemes have already been posting stuff like that during lockdown, which has been really brilliant, like really great stuff. So,
any questions?
Any questions
about anything?
About anything? Yeah, Nick, that's great. Nick's just posted a link to the toolkit again.
In the members area of the website, so it's got all the templates that Michael was talking about and the guidelines there for you to look at, and
the recordings of the previous webinars if you weren't able to make it onto any of the last ones.
What topics would you like us to cover in future?
Is there anything that you particularly struggle with or don't understand? One idea that we had was to maybe do just a glossary session, which would demystify some of the language on social media, and give you a kind of and this would be obviously a written, this would be a written resource, but we could kind of talk through it on a webinar session as well. So just all the terminology like mentions, hashtags, handles, trending, retweets, all that kind of thing. So I don't know if people would find something like that useful. Oh,
we can do that. I was just going to add as well on the toolkit, which is on the members area. I've added a couple more things in the last few days as well. So there's the transparent bunting thing, which you can put across images and things to brighten them up. And we've actually used that on a couple of our posts around Shared Lives Week with the sort of Tea Party theme in mind. So if you're creating stuff on Canva and you're using those, then with the blank background, if it's a PNG, then it's a blank background. You can overlay it onto some of the other images or one of your own images, and it just kind of brightens it up a bit and keeps the branding consistent across other schemes and what we're doing with Shared Lives. But if anyone's got any questions on how to use those, then you can chat about that as well in the next 10 minutes.
Lauren Castle's got an interesting question here, which is there a risk of posting too much? So she says she's got quite a bit of material planned for Shared Lives Week, but doesn't want it to be OTT. It's a very interesting question, that, because really I would generally err on the side of saying no. The more activity, the better. And I guess it goes back to this visibility question again, which I think is something that might be worth some webinar treatment. So, like, as I mentioned, there are a load of different factors which influence just how visible your post is likely to be on somebody's feed, and it will vary from person to person. So if someone interacts with you a lot and engages with you a lot online, and it shows that they like, they're obviously interested in what you've got, then if you post, you're likely to go to the top of their feed and be more prominent. But I mean, one way of just increasing the likelihood of being seen is definitely posting, more and as much as you can, really. But you've got to balance that. You've got to balance that kind of up in the kind of advantage that you might gain from up in the likelihood of people seeing what you've got to share through kind of sheer volume, with the fact that you do want also, there's an effect where you can kind of flush what you've done away, if that's the right terminology. And it used to be, when Twitter and Facebook were more time bound than they were interest bound in terms of the algorithms. And when Twitter didn't used to have a delete or edit function, if you'd made a boo-boo or whatever on Twitter and you'd written something that had a mistake in it or something that you wanted to retract, you could kind of flood your timeline with more posts, and that would mean that the bottom, that what you'd written that you didn't want to be seen would kind of disappear off at the bottom as your feed kind of grew. That happened. That is less. I mean, that works less now, but it's still a risk. If you post a lot now, you risk that kind of first things that you posted not being seen. So you want to kind of give important posts the kind of time and the space to sort of to breathe, I suppose, and to give them a chance.
But lots of newspapers, they will repeat their stories, especially on Twitter, because the feeds move fast. So they have like 5 top stories of the day, and that's what they repeat again and again.
Exactly, especially on Twitter. Because on Twitter you could post something that's brilliant, but because it's faster moving, you might post something amazing, and then if everyone else is tweeting, it can just get kind of lost and flushed down really quickly in the same way. So posting repeatedly is a way of kind of keeping things visible like that. In general too, I suppose another good guideline is the extent to which you can kind of monitor and respond to engagement that you do get on your posts. So if you post 10 posts a day on Facebook and you get loads of engagement on them, that's great. But if you don't have the time to, I suppose, to look at that engagement, and especially if you've posted something about an event and people are asking questions like, how do I get onto this, or how do I do that? You want to make sure that you've got the capacity and the time to sort of manage the level and the volume of interest.
That's a really important point, isn't it? Because I think it's definitely a two-way conversation, regardless of which channel that you're on. I think as a general rule, as I think Phoebe said, that with Twitter, then you would tend to post generally slightly more frequently than you would on, for example, Facebook and other channels. So I think I've seen something around, 8 to 10 tweets a day is perhaps sort of average along those lines, and for those reasons, really. I think Facebook is slightly more logarithm sort of driven in terms of how the content is created for individuals. So you're likely to be reaching out to the same sorts of people with your Facebook posts. Twitter is just the universe. Yes, it's sort of like the mass world. So yes, slightly more, I would say, on Twitter, but yeah, bear in mind your capacity to be able to respond.
We've got another
Shared Lives
question here.
Week. Sorry, just for 1 week only. I think people can bear with lots of tweets about shared lives. So
Oh God, yeah, go for it.
Don't hold back.
So if there was any ambiguity there, sorry, no, there is no.
That's like the longest answer ever to say.
No, just no.
Do what you like.
Just post the hell out of it. Right, we've got another question from Bruce Nace, which is, I missed the last webinar. Did you cover how to hold Facebook Live events? No, we didn't. And actually, hosting live events wasn't on my agenda initially. We were going to cover how to create events because it is a useful. It's a useful tool, and also how to create groups, because they're kind of linked. And again, exactly as Nick just said, Facebook's more logarithm kind of driven rather than, and I suppose it's less time influenced. And changes that Facebook made last year give increased prestige and priority to posts that are posted in groups and in events. And there are a host of other reasons why using groups is a good idea. Not even creating them necessarily, but perhaps joining them and sharing content in relevant groups to get what you want to be seen by a group of people who theoretically might be very, very interested in the kind of subjects that you're interested in too. So we definitely will be covering events and groups. And then live events is definitely a possibility. I suppose that's the same. That is the live streaming, isn't it? I think Facebook Live events is basically streaming, doing a live video feed, and YouTube, for example, has got that functionality.
Even my mum's been doing them recently. She's a vicar, and she's been doing all her services every day. 10 o'clock, she has a chat with her parishioners on Facebook Live.
Maybe she can guest on the webinar.
Oh yeah, I could get her.
You get her to do the rundown. Yeah. So we could. So, but that's an interesting option, that, and we can look at that to kind of create that. Although I have to say, I've never used it personally. So, but it might be
good if you're visiting somebody's, like a Shared Lives carer's home, or wanting to do a live interview, but it might put people on the spot a little bit. It depends how you're going to use it, or people are up for that. It's pretty.
And I was thinking whether you could do stuff like any events that you've got planned for Shared Lives Week, but really I think because technically nothing will be kind of happening physically except in people's individual homes. If you were Facebook Live streaming a Shared Lives tea party, for example, other people can't interact. People can comment and interact with you on the stream, but it's not very mutual. Whereas if you host the meeting over a Zoom or a Teams, like now, everyone can kind of be involved, and you can see each and every person. So
Dawn's just said in the Southwest they've used Facebook Live for Shared Lives Week run, and when we sponsored a community firework night. So that sounds really good.
Yeah. I think definitely when lockdown's over, it's great for stuff like events like that, especially things that like look good, like fireworks or something that's kind of like like a run. That sounds great.
I think the key to that as well is if you want to get a good engagement, is to obviously tell people about it beforehand and generate a bit of a buzz. That if you're going to be broadcasting something live, you'll build up a bit more audience and interaction by engaging with people beforehand and plenty of time just to build up a bit of buzz around it.
Yeah, definitely.
You'll get that audience rather than just sort of going for it, and then you might only get a few people. So it's about maximising the opportunity for audience engagement, really.
So we've had a couple of comments as well about the glossary. It sounds like people would be up for that, and it seems like it makes sense. It makes sense to have it, because I know that's one of the reasons why social media can be misdefined in the first place is you talk to someone who's kind of proficient and used to using it, and they will use specific terms that only really relate to that platform, or they're terms that have another meaning when you're using them specifically about social media, and that can really, like, the language we use can obviously really, like, either invite people or put them off straight away. So yeah, we'll definitely look at doing that.
Got a notable
Great. Right, so I think unless there are any more questions.
And if not, have a lives week, and we can't wait to see all your posts. Give us a shout if you want to, ask for any ideas or posts or got any great photos. And use all the backgrounds and the images that are on the members area of the website, so you can put your own words over the top of them. There's loads of photos there, so that should make it look really good. Oh, the karaoke video is going brilliant. Yeah, we've had about 25 people submit their videos. I've got to do mine later, and yeah, it's going to be good. There's a lot of gusto involved, I'd say, and some tune.
Camera 051 has posted something very interesting, saying it would be really helpful if a strong summary from this could be put together for government-run schemes to add weight to our plea to have our own social media rather than having to rely solely on having the council one. Putting together a high-level case to request that my team have our own social media so that we can add people, groups, etc. And it's going to be a wrangle. Any documents from Shared Life Plus really hold weight when I speak to comms. Okay, so that's really good to know. So we're going to be we're going to be creating another resource like the resource that's already on the digital toolkit that covers all the basics that we've discussed so far, and which includes a lot of the background and theory behind using social media as well. So this is going to be, we're going to create a new document to match these topics that we're covering in this phase, and then eventually, I guess, we'll want to put them together into one thing.
So Michael, sorry, this is a different question. This is about getting shared live schemes that are run by local authorities to have their own social media accounts. And
so no, that's what I was going to say. So the first document does cover that, but I suppose it says that there are two. I mean, I think what I'd written in that is that there are different ways to do it, and that it might actually be beneficial to use the council's social media platforms, because they'll have a greater reach probably than you just starting out, and it technically can add capacity to what you do. But now that I see what you've said there, I think having control and having specific place for shared lives and having that, increasing that brand awareness of shared lives probably is important. And I think we'll probably have to put something separate or something specific together about that, about making a case. And I think that's definitely something that we can look into creating.
Yeah, Laura from Wiltshire has just offered to put together a case how she got her own Shared Lives Twitter feed. That would be great, Lauren, if you share that and we can add to it. Because shared live schemes that are run by government, local authorities do have their own social media platforms, and I think it is really good. It gives you a bit more flexibility. It's definitely got a different vibe, but like Michael says, you also need to get on the council social media channels. There needs to be a relationship between the two, so that
because if it's done right, they can help you. They can add capacity and boost your reach. But I see no reason why actually having your own bespoke page on Facebook and Twitter would interfere with that. Because at the very worst, they would be rather than posting as the main account, they could share your content and reach their larger audience like that anyway. So yes, Lauren, it'd be great if you have kind of something, some steps that you already took to kind of argue this case. If you could, if you're sharing them, if you could share them with us, and then we'll think about how we could maybe add to it. There's some stuff in the rationale on that, in that first resource around tone of voice and you know, liaising with your council comms team to make sure that they're on board. And there are a couple of things that I think can help with that, such as showing a commitment to a certain type tone of voice and style guide, and the way, and that you're going to be proper and professional and talk about things in the right sort of way, that I think can probably help to put council comms teams a bit more at ease and get their buy-in ahead, you know.
And now you've done this amazing training. Oh, that's echoey. Now you've done this amazing training, you know, you're and on message.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. So that's really interesting. So if we'd definitely like to be part of any.
I think part of that argument could also be the number of existing channels that already exist, you know, to create the case. I mean, it's like, this isn't, I don't think the battles that you may be individually having are not unique, in the sense that there are lots of channels that exist and they're doing a great job, and you want to replicate that in your area to help grow and raise awareness of shared.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty solid argument.
Yeah.
It boils down to like your local authority protocols and things, which can be exist in big organisations like that. But yeah, the level of activity that's already taking place for individual schemes is also a very strong argument. So maybe.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, that's exactly right, Nick. And as we said in the first session, I think, and in that first piece of guidance, it's you know, they should be pleased really, because you're adding, you know, you're part of the local authority. You're running a service as part of that local authority, and what you're offering to do is to add more capacity and more value, potentially growing the service, you know, by dedicating your time and your resources to boosting the profile of this service online, which, you know, is part of the council. So really, it's, you know, it is in their interests. So I think maybe perhaps if we can sort of help with some of the wording around that, that might be sounds like it might be useful.
Cool. Thank you. That's a great idea. So we'll do a bit of research on that and get the put all the guidance together that we've got our hands on, and then there's something with everyone in the network.
Yeah. Okay.
Great stuff, guys.
Right.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Yeah, I think that's about time now. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for bearing with the slight technical hitch at the start. As you can see, even digital experts encounter these troubles from time to time. It was great to have you all, great to have you on the chat, and for listening to me drone on for nearly an hour.
Enjoy Shared Lives Week online.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, when is the next one? Well,
next week?
This same time next week, let's say, I think. And so that might be useful as well, to be catching up on how things are going for you all during Shared Lives Week and online, because we'll be in the midst of it by then. So yeah, we'll send a calendar invite out soon.
Great, thanks everyone.
Nice one, thanks Louise. Not loving it myself, but you know, just couldn't. There's nothing to be done this morning. So
you'll come on next week and you'll have a shaved head.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, I'll look more presentable next week. Thanks everybody.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, has this been recording? Oh yeah, it has, hasn't it? There's that.
I think, Phoebe, did you record
time to remember that?
Yeah,
good. I forgot this week, but I remembered last week and you forgot, so we got there in the end.